Now, the PM's under pressure from the unions, and Labor's left to increase their climate targets to be more in line with the states and territories, like I talked about before. And, Stephen Miles, I'm going to start calling him Morose Miles, I reckon, because when you watch him on the screen, he just looks so uncomfortable and sullen, like he doesn't want to be there. But he said, he's going to make climate action a priority. It's all come from the UWU, of course, who installed him in the job. But I spoke to your colleague Keith Pitt just before about research he did with the Parliamentary Library about how many permanent jobs would come out of major renewable projects. The stats are staggering. I mean, there are basically no permanent jobs to be created by any of these major wind farms, solar farms, hydro projects, etc. I mean, what are we doing it all for? And they cost, like that one there, $14.2 billion, and they're going to get 30 permanent jobs out of it. Value for money, mate.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem for regional areas. The promises don't match the reality when it comes to renewable energy. Renewable energy investments are like a sugar hit for the bush. They provide these jobs up front in construction, many more jobs there. Often those jobs are filled by people not from the regional area because they sort of travel around, they're only temporary jobs. So they bring in a workforce, live in dongas, there's a bit of money spent in the town for a couple of years, and as you say, then the long term, there's no jobs. The local McDonald's will employ more people than most of these large-scale solar and wind farms long term in our own communities. So these kind of promises that we're getting that somehow we could shut down our coal industry and replace them with solar and wind is just fantasy land. And the idea now that we double down and increase our emissions targets, I mean, this is what politicians do when they're failing. When they're failing to reach an existing target and promise they've made, they make another target and promise that is just as unrealistic, but helpfully for them will be further into the future. Now, I don't know if Stephen Miles will win the election next year, but I can be pretty confident in this prediction, Caleb, that he won't be Premier in 2035. And that's why it's easy for him to make this sort of 70% reduction of emissions in 2035. He won't be there to be held account to it. And the Labor Party, they actually increased emissions last year. Our emissions went up last year while they were in power federally. And now they're going to tell us they're going to cut it by 70% when they can't even control emissions this year. I mean, how absurd is this?
I tell you what, I hope he's not Premier in 2035. You'd have to leave Queensland.
Something would have gone horribly wrong.
I know. I've woken up from a bad dream. Oh, goodness me. But we've got to make it stick. Morose Miles. Airbus Albo, Morose Miles. So we've got to get it to stick. Now, charities are seeing a surge in demand this month. Obviously Christmas is around the corner. The cost of living squeeze is hitting hard in the run-up. And at the same time, you've got these charities reporting that, their demand is outstripping supply. There's fewer donations coming in because people struggle to find the extra dollars to donate. And then you've got Food Bank Victoria saying that in the past few weeks, they've had their busiest period in their 93-year history. But they've got more food going out than coming in. They've done great work, outfits like Food Bank, to keep people afloat. And increasingly, what they talk about is the people who are coming to get stuff from them are not unemployed or homeless. They're working normal jobs. They just can't make ends meet.
Yeah, the working poor among us has skyrocketed under this Labor government. And of course, there are some things out of the government's control, but there are very, very significant things in this federal Labor government's control that they have totally botched. The most prime example of that is the immigration intake. We were coming out of COVID when the Labor Party came to power. Obviously, we had to open our borders and there was a need to bring in some workers to help fill skill shortages. But this government just opened the floodgates, including to hundreds of thousands of students who are clearly not filling a skill shortage in Australia. And they totally botched that. They don't have enough houses or infrastructure to keep pace with this level of migration growth. And that has caused many Australians to not have housing themselves, many Australians to have increased costs, and exacerbated the high inflation, high interest rates environment. Now, we know the government stuffed it up because now, after the horse has bolted, they're trying to reduce the numbers, or they've said they're going to reduce for the next few weeks. But this is a massive stuff up from this Labor government, and it's hurting, as you say, hurting the working poor, hurting people amongst who are working hard and shouldn't have to join a breadline or to live in a tent in a developed country like Australia.
No, Matt Canavan, Merry Christmas. Thank you for joining me, and Merry Christmas
to
Merry Christmas to the kids too. Sounds like they've been having some fun in the background there. See you, mate.